Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Populations. Today, we're going to look at what factors limit a population's growth or encourage a population's growth. To refresh, and this is important, we need to make sure we understand populations grow naturally because of birth and death, but they also grow due to migration, organisms moving into or out of a population. Now, when living conditions are good, populations typically grow. Eventually, though, a population will stop growing because of what we call a limiting factor. Now, it sounds complicated. It sounds very sciencey, but it's really not. If something limits something, it restricts it. I have a speed limit. I'm not allowed to drive 100 miles an hour out on the road. I have a speed limit that I have to follow. A limiting factor will make a population stop growing or do the reverse and actually start to decrease. So we have three main limiting factors: climate or the weather, space, the area available, think back to population density, and food and water. Now, we were talking yesterday, why might an organism move from their home? Why might they migrate? Why might they emigrate out or immigrate into a new society? Part of it could be due to climate. If a climate is hostile or not very hospitable or very easy to live in, you might find that people decide to leave and search for places where it might be easier to live. A fantastic example about this, I like to think of the American West, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, the areas that are basically desert, right? Up until a certain point, the population there was relatively small because it was very difficult to live in. However, with technology, we have the advent of moving water, plumbing, but we also have air conditioning. And as soon as plumbing and air conditioning kind of became a thing, all of a sudden, humans were able to live in that area a lot easier. And since then, the population in those areas have increased. Phoenix has got a thriving population. It's still really, really hot, and almost everybody has a swimming pool, but people can live there now. You might also find people emigrating due to really weird weather, if weather patterns change, or catastrophic events like a hurricane. In the early 2000s, we had Hurricane Katrina that came in and just devastated the American South, and Louisiana was hit especially hard. And a lot of people emigrated from Louisiana to other parts of the country simply because they just could not live in their home anymore due to food, due to damage, due to just the overall overwhelming devastation. The second reason we get limiting factors is space. Not space like outer space, but space like how much room do people have. If there's no room to grow, populations can't get bigger. If they try, bad things tend to happen. Think about your home. Your home could support 6 people. If for some reason you have more people moving in and you have 10 people living in your home, your space is greatly reduced. I'm not talking about your bedroom, but I'm just talking about your overall area. You're going to need more food. You're going to need more water. And sometimes it's hard to get enough for the 6 as it is. So what's going to happen to the 10? Well, pretend we're not humans for a second. Well, organisms will emigrate and leave that place for better pastures, right? Or they'll get sick and die. Every area has what we call a carrying capacity, just a certain number that the area can support. Food, water, shelter, right? Those are the 3 things an organism needs from its habitat. If the habitat can't provide those 3 things, an organism needs to either leave or they're going to die. So the carrying capacity, okay? Food and water also ties directly in with carrying capacity. If there's not enough food to feed the entire population, people will tend to leave or, well, die. But this is also brought about, once again, by weather or just weird things happening. There's a drought or there's a flood or there's a disease that comes in and just wipes out all of the food. That affects the carrying capacity of a population as well. the population exceeds the carrying capacity, something has to change. Now, the thing about populations is if they're well below the carrying capacity, say like they're at 50%, you're going to find that populations and humans in particular, but every population does this, that the population is going to try to grow as close as it can to that carrying capacity. And then when it gets there, it's going to stagnate. It's going to stay the same until it changes, either because of technology where it gets higher, or it's going to decrease because of other issues. Leads me back to our map that we discussed, or our chart. So this darker section represents history that has already happened. The lighter section here are predictions. And as you can see, we start to notice a curve. And it's represented by this purple line right here, the growth rate, right? The growth rate is drastically dropping. In 140 years, it basically goes to zero. This is what they're predicting. A lot of scientists have been worried about the fact that we may be reaching Earth's carrying capacity. If Earth can no longer sustain us, we got a problem. A lot of authors and movies recently, I've noticed, have been kind of playing on this idea and talking about overpopulation and all of that. If you saw Infinity War and Endgame, boom, this concept right here is the entire premise of that movie. Thanos saw this, and in order to help the universe, he killed half of everybody. I don't recommend, mass murder. That's a really bad thing. But when he did that, he freed up all kinds of resources and got the population away from the carrying capacity max. Murder is bad, don't get me wrong. But Marvel just delved into this world. So this concept is why we had two amazingly awesome movies. I hope that helped. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to ask. Let me know. Send me a message. Leave me a comment. Otherwise, have a good day. Bye.